The steady beep of the heart monitor was the only sound in the VIP suite of Mount Sinai Hospital, drowning out the soft whimpers of 3 newborns. Elena, exhausted and pale, reached out for her husband's hand, her eyes filled with tears of joy. "Adrian," she whispered, "look, we have 3 beautiful sons." But Adrian Blackwood, the CEO of Blackwood Enterprises, didn't look at the babies. He didn't take her hand. Instead, he tossed a thick manila envelope onto the hospital bed. It landed heavily beside her legs. "Sign these," he said, his voice colder than ice. "I'm divorcing you, Elena. I need a wife who fits my image, not a charity case. You have 1 hour to vacate the premises. The medical bills are on you." Elena froze. She had just given birth minutes ago. She had nothing. Or so he thought. What Adrian didn't know was that the phone ringing in her bag wasn't a bill collector. It was a lawyer representing the most powerful hidden empire in New York, and Elena was the sole heir. The sterile smell of the hospital room suddenly felt suffocating. Elena stared at the manila envelope, her mind unable to process the cruelty of the moment. She had been in labor for 14 hours. Her body felt like it had been run over by a truck. In the plastic bassinets next to her, 3 tiny miracles, Leo, Sam, and Noah, were sleeping, unaware that their father had just severed their future before it had even begun. Adrian adjusted his bespoke Italian suit, checking his Rolex. He looked immaculate, as if he hadn't just shattered a woman's life. "Adrian, is this a joke?" Elena asked, her voice trembling. She tried to sit up, but a sharp pain in her abdomen forced her back against the pillows. "I just gave birth. Your children. Our children." "My lawyers have drafted the papers," Adrian interrupted, his tone bored. "I've been generous. I'm giving you a check for $10,000. That should cover a month of rent somewhere. Modest. As for the boys, I'm relinquishing parental rights. I don't have time for diapers and crying. My company is about to go public, Elena. I need to be focused." The door to the private suite opened, and a woman walked in. The clicking of her red-bottomed heels was sharp and rhythmic. It was Isabella, Adrian's personal assistant, and, as Elena had suspected for months, his mistress. She was wearing a white cashmere coat that probably cost more than Elena's entire wardrobe. "Is it done, babe?" Isabella asked, linking her arm through Adrian's. She glanced at Elena with a look of pure pity mixed with disgust. "Oh, honey, you look dreadful. Birth really does a number on a woman, doesn't it?" "She's signing now," Adrian said, handing Isabella a pen. Elena looked between them. The betrayal was a physical blow. "You're leaving me for her? Now? Here?" "Isabella understands my world," Adrian said smoothly. "She's from a good family. She knows how to host galas, how to speak to investors. You, Elena, you're a waitress. I met at a diner. It was a nice fairy tale for a while, but let's be realistic. You don't belong in my world. You're an anchor dragging me down. I supported you when you started Blackwood Tech in our garage," Elena cried, tears finally spilling over. "I worked double shifts to pay for your servers. I fed you when you couldn't afford ramen. And I'm paying you $10,000 for your trouble," Adrian snapped. "Sign the papers, Elena, or I withdraw the offer and you get nothing. Do you really want to be homeless with 3 infants?" The threat hung in the air. Elena looked at her babies. She had no family. Her parents had died when she was young. She had no savings because every penny she earned went into Adrian's dream. With shaking hands, she took the pen. She didn't sign it because she wanted to. She signed it because she had to survive. She scribbled her name, tears blotting the ink. "Good choice," Adrian said, snatching the papers back. He dropped a check onto the bed. "Good luck, Elena. You'll need it." Isabella blew her a kiss. "Don't worry, we'll name the yacht after you." They walked out, leaving the door open. The sounds of the hospital hallway rushed in, nurses chatting, carts rolling, phones ringing. Elena was alone. An hour later, a nurse came in, looking uncomfortable. "Mrs. Blackwood. I mean, Ms. Ross? I'm so sorry, but the credit card on file for the room has been declined. And the gentleman who left, he canceled the private suite authorization." Elena clutched her sons close, her heart pounding. I have to leave?" "We can move you to the general ward for recovery," the nurse said gently. "But..." "No," Elena said, a sudden fire igniting in her chest. The check Adrian gave her was in her hand. It was humiliating, but it was fuel. I'm leaving, just help me get my babies ready. She wasn't going to stay in a place where he had discarded her like trash. She wrapped Leo, Sam, and Noah in the hospital blankets. She was weak, bleeding, and terrified, but as she walked out of those hospital doors into the biting New York winter wind, she made a vow. Adrian Blackwood, you think you're a king because you built a company? One day I will buy your company just to fire you. She hailed a cab, the wind whipping her hair. Where to, lady? The driver asked. Elena looked at the check. $10,000 wouldn't last long in New York with 3 babies? The cheapest motel you know in Queens, she whispered. 3 weeks later. The Starlight Motel in Queens was anything but starry. It smelled of stale cigarettes and damp carpet. The heater clanked and rattled, barely keeping the room warm. Elena looked at her reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror. Dark circles bruised her eyes. She had lost so much weight she looked skeletal. The babies were crying in shifts. When Leo slept, Sam cried. When Sam slept, Noah cried. She hadn't slept more than 2 hours straight in 20 days. The $10,000 was draining fast. Diapers, formula, a stroller, the motel bill, it was bleeding her dry. She had applied for jobs, but who would hire a single mother with 3 newborns and no childcare? She sat on the edge of the sagging bed, feeding Noah a bottle. The TV in the corner was tuned to a business news channel. Blackwood tech stock soars as CEO Adrian Blackwood announces engagement to socialite Isabella Vance, the reporter chirped. The screen showed Adrian and Isabella at a charity gala. They looked radiant, holding flutes of champagne. Elena felt bile rise in her throat. He was toasting to his success while his children were sleeping in a motel drawer she had lined with blankets. A heavy knock on the door made her jump. Panic seized her. Was it the motel manager? Was she late on payment? Or worse, was it social services coming to take the boys because she was living in a dump? Who is it? She called out, her voice raspy. Ms. Elena Ross? A deep, authoritative voice came through the door. Elena grabbed a small knife she kept for cutting fruit and hid it in her pocket. She opened the door just a crack, keeping the chain on. Standing in the hallway was a man who looked distinctly out of place. He was older, perhaps in his 60s, wearing a charcoal gray 3-piece suit that screamed, old money. He held a briefcase and wore wire-rimmed glasses. Behind him stood 2 large men in black suits, bodyguards. I'm not interested in whatever you're selling, Elena said, about to slam the door. I am not selling anything, the man said, his voice calm. My name is Arthur Pennyworth. I am the executor of the Sterling estate. I've been looking for you for 6 months, Ms. Ross. Or should I say, Miss Sterling? Elena paused. Sterling? I don't know any Sterlings. You have the wrong room. Your mother was Sarah Ross, correct? Arthur asked quickly before she could close the door. She died when you were 5. She never told you about her father because she ran away from home at 18. Elena froze. Her mother never spoke about her family. She always said they were bad people who cared more about money than love. What do you want? Elena asked, her grip on the door tightening. Your grandfather, Silas Sterling, passed away 4 weeks ago, Arthur said. He pulled a document from his briefcase. He was the owner of Sterling Industries. Real estate, shipping, technology, oil. He was one of the wealthiest men in the Western Hemisphere. Elena laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Look, mister, I'm tired. I have 3 screaming babies, and I have exactly $400 to my name. If this is a scam, it's a cruel one. Arthur looked past her, into the dingy room. He saw the baby sleeping in the dresser drawer. His expression softened, his eyes showing a flicker of profound sadness. It is not a scam, my dear, Arthur said softly. Silas Sterling had no other heirs. Your mother was his only child. You are his only grandchild. And those 3 boys, he looked at the babies. They are the future of the Sterling dynasty. Elena slowly undid the chain. She opened the door. Arthur stepped in, signaling his bodyguards to stay outside. He opened the briefcase and laid out a thick stack of documents on the stained bedspread. Silas regretted driving your mother away every day of his life, Arthur explained. He spent the last decade trying to find her. And then you. When he found out you were married to Adrian Blackwood, he stayed away. He didn't trust Adrian. He thought Adrian was ambitious in the wrong ways. He wanted to wait until you were free. He knew, Elena whispered. He knew I was struggling? He didn't know about the divorce until 3 days ago, Arthur said. We lost track of you when you left the hospital. My private investigators found you this morning. Arthur picked up a pen, a heavy gold fountain pen. The Sterling estate is valued at approximately $42 billion, Arthur stated matter-of-factly. It includes a penthouse on Fifth Avenue, an estate in the Hamptons, a chateau in France, and majority shareholder control of Sterling Global. Elena's knees gave out. She sat on the bed, the room spinning. 42 billion. The number was abstract, impossible. Why me? She wept. I'm nobody. You are a Sterling, Arthur said firmly. But there is a condition in the will. Elena looked up. There's always a catch. Silas wanted his empire to go to someone strong. Someone who wouldn't just spend the money, but who could lead. The condition is that you must step in as the chairwoman of Sterling Global immediately. You cannot sell the company for 5 years. You must run it. Elena looked at her hands, chapped from washing bottles in the bathroom sink. She looked at her baggy sweatpants. I was a waitress. I don't know how to run an empire. Arthur smiled, a twinkle in his eye. You survived Adrian Blackwood. You survived childbirth alone. You survived this motel. You have the steel, Elena. I will teach you the rest. I served your grandfather for 40 years. I will serve you. He held out the pen. So, Ms. Ross, are you ready to leave this motel? The car downstairs is a Rolls-Royce Phantom. It has heated seats, and I took the liberty of installing 3 car seats in the back. Elena looked at the pen. She thought of Adrian's face when he threw the divorce papers at her. She thought of Isabella's pity. She thought of her sons growing up in poverty. She took the pen. Her hand didn't shake this time. My name, she said, her voice strengthening, is Elena Sterling. She signed the document. Arthur bowed his head. Welcome back, Madam Chairwoman. Let's get you home. 3 years had passed since that freezing night in Queens. In the high-stakes world of New York finance, a new legend had emerged. They called her the Empress of Shadows. No one had seen her face publicly. She never gave televised interviews, and her photos never appeared in tabloids. She communicated through her proxy, Arthur Pennyworth. But her moves were felt everywhere. In 3 years, Sterling Global had tripled in value. It had acquired shipping lines in Greece, lithium mines in Nevada, and tech startups in Silicon Valley. The business world was terrified of this mysterious chairwoman, who played the market like a grandmaster plays chess. Inside the sprawling Sterling Manor in the Hamptons, the Empress was currently on her hands and knees, pretending to be a horse. Giddy up, Mommy! Leo squealed, holding onto the back of Elena's silk blouse. Sam and Noah were tumbling over each other on the plush Persian rug, laughing hysterically. Elena Sterling, now 26, looked nothing like the exhausted, broken woman who had left Mount Sinai Hospital. Her hair was no longer a dull, messy bun. It was a sleek, cascading curtain of chestnut waves that shone under the crystal chandeliers. Her skin, once pale and sickly, glowed with health and the finest skincare money could buy. But the biggest change was in her eyes. The fear was gone, replaced by a steely, violet-hued confidence. She stood up, scooping a giggling Leo into her arms. All right, my little monsters. Nanny Margaret is waiting for your nap time. No nap. We want to help with business, Noah stated, crossing his little arms. He was the spitting image of Adrian, the same dark hair, the same jawline, but Elena swore to raise him with a heart Adrian never had. Business later, Elena kissed his forehead. Go! As the nannies took the boys away, the playful atmosphere in the room instantly evaporated. Arthur Pennyworth stepped out from the library, holding a tablet. He had aged gracefully, his loyalty to Elena absolute. The boys are growing fast, Arthur noted with a smile. They are? Elena said, her voice dropping to a lower, more authoritative register. She walked over to her desk, a massive slab of mahogany that had once belonged to her grandfather. Give me the update on Blackwood Tech. Arthur's expression turned serious. It's as you predicted, madam. Adrian Blackwood is desperate. His flagship product, the Blackwood AI home, is failing. The sensors are faulty, and he's facing 3 class action lawsuits. His stock has plummeted 40% in the last quarter. Elena picked up a crystal tumbler of water, staring out the window at her manicured gardens. And his personal finances? Strained, Arthur reported. Isabella Vance has expensive taste. She convinced Adrian to buy a private island in the Caribbean last year, and the mortgage payments are crippling his liquidity. He's leveraging company assets to pay for his lifestyle. Elena smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. He's getting sloppy. Arrogance always was his Achilles heel. He has reached out to Sterling Global again, Arthur said, tapping the screen. This is his 5th request for a meeting this month. He's seeking a capital injection of $200 million to save his company from bankruptcy. He says he's willing to offer a 15% stake. 15%? Elena laughed coldly. He thinks he's still the king. Tell him no. Arthur raised an eyebrow. Just no? We could crush him now, Elena. Buy the debt, foreclose on his assets. You could leave him homeless by Tuesday. Elena turned back to Arthur. Too fast, Arthur. If I crush him instantly, he won't understand why. He needs to feel hope first. He needs to believe he's about to be saved, so the fall destroys him completely. She walked over to the calendar on the wall. She circled a date in red marker. The Sterling Diamond Gala is in 2 weeks, she said. It's the most exclusive event of the year. Invite him. Arthur looked surprised. You want Adrian and Isabella here? In your home? Not my home, Elena corrected. The Metropolitan Museum. We're renting out the Temple of Dendor. Send him a VIP invitation. Make him believe that the mysterious chairwoman of Sterling Global is interested in his vision. And when he arrives, Elena's eyes narrowed. I will finally introduce myself. It's time for the Empress to step out of the shadows. J. Blank. Meanwhile, in a modern glass penthouse in Manhattan, the mood was toxic. You spent $50,000 on curtains? Adrian Blackwood screamed, throwing a credit card bill onto the glass coffee table. Isabella, lounging on a white sofa filing her nails, didn't flinch. They're imported silk, Adrian. Don't be so dramatic. You're the CEO of Blackwood Tech. Act like it. I'm the CEO of a company that is bleeding money. Adrian roared, running a hand through his hair. He looked older than his years now. The stress lines were deep, and he had gained weight from drinking too much scotch to numb the panic. The investors are breathing down my neck. If I don't get funding soon, the board is going to vote me out. So fix it, Isabella snapped. Charm someone, that's what you're good at. You charmed that little waitress into supporting you for years, didn't you? Find another sucker. Adrian glared at her. He often thought of Elena lately. Elena never asked for silk curtains. Elena never complained when he worked late. Elena had looked at him with adoration, not this calculating boredom Isabella had. But he pushed the thought away. Elena was the past. A mistake. His phone pinged. He grabbed it, expecting bad news from his CFO. Instead, his eyes widened. What? Isabella asked, seeing his face change. It's an email. From the office of the chairwoman of Sterling Global, Adrian whispered, his voice trembling with excitement. They're inviting us to the Diamond Gala. VIP access. Isabella sat up straight, her eyes gleaming greedily. Sterling Global? The hedge fund that's buying up everything? They're worth billions. Tens of billions, Adrian corrected, a grin spreading across his face. This is it, Bella. This is the lifeline. The chairwoman must have seen my proposal. She wants to invest. He grabbed Isabella and kissed her, the fight forgotten. Get a dress. The most expensive one you can find. We are going to that gala, and I am going to close the deal of the century. Little did he know, he was dressing up for his own execution. The Temple of Dendor at the Metropolitan Museum of Art was transformed into a realm of gold and obsidian. Waiters in white tuxedos moved silently through the crowd of New York's elite, carrying trays of caviar and vintage champagne. A string quartet played a haunting melody in the corner. The theme of the night was reflections. Guests wore masks, adding an air of mystery to the proceedings. Adrian Blackwood adjusted his black velvet mask. He felt out of place, despite his expensive tuxedo. The wealth in this room wasn't just tech money. It was old money, dangerous money. He spotted senators, oil tycoons, and royalty. Isabella clung to his arm, wearing a dress that was cut too low and covered in too many sequins. She was trying too hard, and the icy stares from the other women made it obvious. "Where is she?" Isabella hissed. "This chairwoman? I don't know." Adrian scanned the room. Arthur Pennyworth said she makes her entrance at 9 p.m. sharp. Suddenly, the lights dimmed. A hush fell over the crowd. At the top of the grand staircase, a spotlight hit a lone figure. It was a woman. She wore a gown of midnight blue velvet that hugged her curves like a second skin. Trailing behind her in a long, dramatic train, around her neck, sat a necklace that made the audience gasp. The Star of the East, a diamond so large and rare it was rumored to be lost. She wore a mask made of filigree silver, covering the upper half of her face, but her lips were visible, painted a deep crimson. Her dark hair cascaded down her back in loose, glossy waves. She didn't walk, she glided. Every eye was fixed on her. The aura of power she projected was suffocating. "My God," Adrian whispered. "She's stunning." Isabella dug her nails into his arm. "She's just a woman, Adrian. Focus on the money." The woman reached the bottom of the stairs. Arthur Pennyworth appeared at her side, offering his arm. She didn't speak to the crowd. She simply nodded, a queen acknowledging her subjects. "That's her," Adrian said, straightening his tie. "Time to work." He pushed through the crowd, dragging Isabella. He needed to get to her before the other sharks did. "Miss Sterling?" Adrian called out as he neared her circle. The woman turned. Even behind the mask, her gaze felt heavy. She looked at Adrian, then at Isabella. A slow, unrecognizable smile curled her red lips. "Mr. Blackwood," she said. Her voice was smooth, rich, and cultured. Very different from the frantic, high-pitched voice of the woman who had begged him not to leave her in a hospital room 3 years ago. She had taken voice coaching for 2 years to erase her queen's accent and lower her pitch. "You know who I am?" Adrian asked, flattered. "I make it my business to know everyone worth knowing, and everyone worth avoiding," she replied enigmatically. "And this must be the famous Isabella." Isabella preened. "A pleasure. I love your dress. Who is the designer?" "It's custom," the woman replied dismissively, turning her attention back to Adrian. "I read your proposal, Adrian. May I call you Adrian?" "Please," Adrian said, sweating slightly under her intense gaze. I hope you found the terms favorable." "The terms were ambitious," she said. "But I like ambition. However, I never do business with strangers. Dance with me." It wasn't a request. It was a command. Isabella opened her mouth to protest, but Adrian was already moving. "Of course." He led the mystery woman onto the dance floor. The orchestra began a waltz. Adrian placed his hand on her waist. He felt a strange electric shock, a sense of déjà vu he couldn't place. She smelled of jasmine and rain, a scent that tickled a memory in the back of his mind, but he couldn't grab it. "You have a firm grip, Adrian?" she murmured as they spun. "Do you hold on to your assets as tightly as you hold on to your partners?" "I protect what's mine," Adrian lied smoothly. "Do you?" She tilted her head, her violet eyes boring into his through the silver mask. "Rumor has it you're quick to discard things when they lose their shine. Old projects, old people." Adrian stiffened. "Business requires hard decisions. Cutting dead weight is essential for growth." "Dead weight," she repeated, the temperature in her voice dropping 10 degrees. "Is that what you call loyalty these days?" "I'm looking forward, not backward," Adrian said, trying to regain control of the conversation. "Sterling Global and Blackwood Tech could revolutionize the industry. My AI with your capital. We could rule the market." "I don't need your AI to rule the market, Adrian," she whispered near his ear. "I already own the market. The question is, why should I?" "Save you?" "Because I'm a winner," Adrian said arrogantly. "And winners bet on winners." She laughed, a dark, melodic sound. "I'll tell you what. I'll consider your proposal. But I want to do due diligence personally. I'm coming to your office tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Have your books open. If I like what I see, I'll give you the $200 million. Adrian felt like he had just won the lottery. "You won't regret this." The music stopped. She pulled away instantly. "Until tomorrow, Mr. Blackwood." She turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd of admirers. Adrian walked back to Isabella, beaming. I did it. She's coming tomorrow. We're saved. Isabella looked at the retreating figure of the woman, her eyes narrowed with suspicion. I don't like her, Adrian. She looks at you like a wolf looks at a steak. You're just jealous, Adrian scoffed. The next morning, at 9:55 a.m., the Blackwood Tech conference room was in chaos. Interns were scrubbing the glass walls. Adrian was shouting at his CFO to hide the red ink in the quarterly reports. She needs to see potential, not debt, Adrian yelled. Move the liabilities to the shell company for today. At 10 a.m. sharp, the elevator doors opened. The entire office went silent. Arthur Pennyworth walked out first, followed by 2 large bodyguards. And then, she walked out. She wasn't wearing a mask today. She wore a white power suit that cost more than most cars. Her hair was pulled back in a severe high ponytail. She wore large, dark sunglasses. Adrian rushed forward, his hand extended. Ms. Sterling, welcome to Blackwood Tech. She ignored his hand. She walked past him, straight into the conference room, and sat at the head of the table, his chair. Adrian blinked, annoyed, but desperate. He followed her in. Isabella was there too, sitting in the corner, trying to look important. Shall we begin? Adrian asked, standing awkwardly at the side of the table. I have a presentation prepared. Sit down, Adrian, the woman said. She reached up and slowly removed her sunglasses. For the first time in 3 years, Adrian Blackwood looked into the eyes of his ex-wife. The silence in the room was absolute. It was heavy, thick, and suffocating. Adrian stared. He squinted. His brain refused to process the information. It was impossible. Elena was a waitress. Elena was destitute. Elena was in Queens. This woman was a titan. You! Adrian whispered, his voice cracking. You look like the dead weight you discarded? Elena finished the sentence. Isabella gasped, dropping her phone. Oh my God! It's her, the waitress. Elena turned her gaze to Isabella. Hello, Isabella. I see you're still wearing last season's jewelry. Adrian stumbled back, hitting the wall. Elena? This is a joke. How? Elena leaned forward, placing her elbows on the table, interlacing her fingers. The massive Sterling family ring on her finger glinted under the fluorescent lights. It's Elena Sterling now, Adrian, and I'm not here to invest in your company, she signaled Arthur. He slid a folder across the table. I'm here to buy it. For pennies on the dollar. The air in the conference room was so tense, it felt like a physical weight. Adrian Blackwood stared at the woman sitting in his chair. The chair he had commissioned from Italian leather artisans, unable to reconcile the 2 images in his mind. The weeping, broken woman in the hospital gown, and this titan of industry with eyes like shattered ice. This is impossible, Adrian stammered, his face draining of color. Elena, you were a waitress. You didn't even have money for a cab ride. Things change, Adrian, Elena said, her voice devoid of any warmth. I learned that poverty is a temporary condition. But stupidity? Stupidity is a lifestyle choice. And you, my dear ex-husband, have made some very poor choices. Isabella, recovering from her initial shock, stood up, her face twisting into a sneer. So what? You got a makeover and found a sugar daddy? You think that scares us? Adrian is a visionary. You can't just walk in here and demand to buy his company. Elena didn't even look at Isabella. She simply flicked her fingers at Arthur. Arthur projected a document onto the smart glass wall of the conference room. It was a loan agreement. This, Elena said, pointing to the screen, is the promissory note for the $80 million you borrowed from Vantage Bank to fund your failed expansion into Asia. You used your Blackwood stock as collateral? Adrian swallowed hard. So, I'm renegotiating the terms with Vantage. No, you're not, Elena corrected him. Because Vantage sold the debt this morning. To me. Specifically, to a subsidiary of Sterling Global called Nemesis Holdings. She leaned forward, her eyes locking onto his. I called the note due 10 minutes ago, Adrian. You have 24 hours to pay me $80 million, plus interest. If you don't, I foreclose on the collateral. I take your stock, I take your company, I take your building, I take everything down to the coffee machine. Adrian slumped into the nearest chair. 80 million. He didn't have 8 million, let alone 80. He was leveraged to the hilt. You can't do this, he whispered. This is a hostile takeover. It's just business. Elena threw his own words back at him. Isn't that what you told me? I need a wife who fits my image. Well, Adrian, I need a company that fits my portfolio. And right now, your company is a mess. She tossed another file onto the table. It slid across the polished wood and hit his hand. And just in case you were thinking of fighting me in court, Elena added softly, that file contains the forensic accounting report of your last 3 quarters. You've been hiding liabilities in offshore shell companies to inflate your stock price. That's securities fraud, Adrian. Federal prison time, 10 to 20 years. The room went deathly silent. Isabella looked at the file, then at Adrian. Her eyes widened in horror. She wasn't horrified by the crime, she was horrified by the consequences. Is this true? Isabella hissed at him. You told me we were solvent. I was fixing it. Adrian stammered, sweat pouring down his forehead. He looked at Elena, his eyes pleading. Elena, please, for the sake of what we had, don't send me to jail. I'm the father of your children. Elena laughed. It was a harsh, sharp sound. Oh, now you're a father? You relinquished your rights 3 years ago. You haven't sent a birthday card. You haven't paid a dime. Do not dare speak to me about my children. She stood up, walking around the table until she stood over him. Here is the deal, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. I won't report the fraud to the SEC. Yet. Adrian looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. Thank you. Thank you, Elena. Save your gratitude, she cut him off. I'm buying Blackwood Tech for $1. You will sign over 100% of the equity today. $1? Adrian choked. And, she continued, you will stay on, not as CEO. I'm appointing a new CEO. You will stay on as head of legacy projects. You will work in a cubicle on the 4th floor. You will report to a junior manager. You will watch me fix the mess you made, and you will do it with a smile. If you quit, or if you undermine me, I release the fraud evidence to the FBI. Adrian looked at Isabella for support, but she was already backing away toward the door. I can't be with a felon, Isabella muttered, clutching her Chanel bag. And if you're broke, Adrian, I have a reputation to maintain. Bella? Adrian called out, stunned. You're leaving me? You lost, babe, Isabella said coldly. She looked at Elena, nodded once in fear, and hurried out of the room. Elena watched the door close. She seems nice. Fits your image perfectly. She placed a pen in front of Adrian. Sign the sale papers, Adrian. Welcome to the Sterling Global family. Your shift starts at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Don't be late. With a trembling hand, the man who once thought he ruled the world signed his life away to the wife he had discarded. 2 weeks had passed since the takeover. The Blackwood Tech building, now rebranded as Sterling Blackwood, was undergoing massive changes. The dark, brooding aesthetic Adrian loved was being replaced with bright, open spaces. Efficiency was up. Morale was up. Except on the 4th floor. Adrian sat in a gray cubicle, staring at a spreadsheet. His office used to be a penthouse suite, with a panoramic view of Manhattan. Now his view was the back of a coworker's head. His junior manager was a 24-year-old named Kevin, who chewed gum loudly and constantly corrected Adrian's formatting. Hey, Adrian, Kevin called out, leaning over the partition. Did you finish those data entry logs? The chairwoman wants them by noon. I'm working on it, Kevin. Adrian gritted out, his jaw tight. Every day was a humiliation. He had to swipe a badge to enter the building he built. He had to drink the free break room coffee instead of his imported espresso. But he couldn't leave. The threat of prison hung over him like a guillotine blade. Just then, the elevator doors at the end of the hall dinged. Elena stepped out. But she wasn't alone. 3 small whirlwinds of energy burst onto the floor. Mommy, look! Computers! Leo shouted, running down the aisle. I want to spin in the chairs, Sam yelled, making a beeline for an empty desk. Noah, the quietest of the three, walked beside Elena, holding her hand. He was clutching a toy robot. The office ground to a halt. Employees smiled, cooing at the children. It was rare to see the Iron Empress looking so maternal. She was laughing, trying to corral them. Leo, don't touch the keyboards. Sam, get down from there. Elena scolded gently, though she was smiling. Adrian froze in his cubicle. He heard the voices. He slowly stood up and peered over the partition. He saw them. 3 boys. Identical triplets. They were about 3 years old. They had dark, curly hair and bright eyes. They looked exactly like him. It was like looking at old home videos of himself. The recognition hit him in the gut, harder than the bankruptcy. These were his sons. The sons he had called a, quote, burden. The sons he had refused to hold. Who are they? Kevin asked, popping his gum. Cute kids. They're mine, Adrian whispered, though Kevin didn't hear him. Elena was walking down the aisle, heading toward the server room for an inspection, trailed by the boys. As they passed Adrian's row, Leo stopped. The little boy looked at Adrian. He tilted his head. Hello, Leo said bravely. Adrian looked down at the child. His heart hammered against his ribs. Hi, he croaked. You look like me, Leo observed with the brutal honesty of a toddler. Elena stopped. She turned around and saw Leo talking to the man in the cubicle. Her smile vanished instantly. She marched over, her heels clicking sharply on the floor. Leo, come here, she said firmly. Mommy, this man looks like me, Leo pointed. Adrian looked up at Elena. His eyes were wide, filled with a mixture of shock and a sudden, calculating gleam. They're beautiful, Elena, Adrian said softly. They have my nose. They have nothing of yours, Elena hissed, stepping between him and the children. Arthur, take the boys to the car, now. Arthur Pennyworth appeared seemingly out of nowhere, gently guiding the confused triplets away. Come along, young masters. Ice cream time. Once they were gone, Elena turned on Adrian, her fury radiating in waves. If you ever speak to them again, I will move your desk to the basement next to the boiler. You can't hide them forever, Adrian said, finding a sudden surge of confidence. He stood up, straightening his cheap, off-the-rack tie. I'm their biological father. Paternity tests don't lie. You signed away your rights, Elena reminded him. Under duress, Adrian countered. I was stressed. I wasn't thinking clearly. Any judge would look at a billionaire mother keeping a father from his children and see alienation. He stepped closer to her. For the first time in weeks, he felt like he had leverage. The money was gone, the company was gone, but the heirs? That was a different game. I've changed, Elena, he lied, his voice taking on that smooth, manipulative tone he used to pitch investors. Seeing them, it woke something up in me. I want to be a dad. I want to be in their lives. Elena stared at him. She saw the gears turning. She knew him too well. He didn't want to be a dad. He wanted access to the sterling fortune through the children. He saw 3 little winning lottery tickets. She leaned in close, her voice dangerously calm. You think you can play the family court game with me, Adrian? I have a team of 50 lawyers who do nothing but crush pests like you. You want to claim duress? I have the recording of you in the hospital calling them. Diapers and crying. I have the testimony of the nurses you yelled at. I have the receipts of the mistress you left me for. She poked him in the chest. You are an employee here. Nothing more. If you try to sue for custody, I will countersue for the child support you missed, based on your income before you went broke. You'll be in debt for 3 lifetimes. She turned to leave. Elena! Adrian called out. They need a father. She paused, looking back over her shoulder. They have a grandfather's legacy, she said, and they have a mother who would burn the world to protect them. They don't need a donor. She walked away. Adrian sat back down in his cubicle. His hands were shaking, but a dark smile formed on his lips. She was scared. He could see it. She was terrified he would get close to them. He pulled out his phone. He dialed a number he hadn't called in weeks. Isabella? He said when she answered. What do you want, loser? She snapped. Don't hang up. Adrian said, keeping his voice low. I have a plan. Elena has a weak spot. Her kids. And guess who just realized that under New York state law, biological parents have rights that are very, very hard to terminate permanently? I don't care about kids, Adrian. You care about money, Adrian whispered. The Sterling Trust is set up for those boys. If I get custody, even partial custody, I get control of the trust payouts. We're talking millions a month, Bella. Are you in? There was a long silence on the other end. I'm listening, Isabella said. The courtroom was packed. It wasn't just a family court hearing. It was a media circus. The headline, Billionaire Heiress versus Destitute Dad, had captivated New York. Outside, camera crews jostled for position. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of floor wax and expensive cologne. Adrian Blackwood sat at the plaintiff's table, looking appropriately somber. He had traded his flashy suits for a modest, slightly ill-fitting gray jacket. He looked humble. He looked like a victim. Next to him sat a shark of a lawyer, paid for by selling the last of his watches. On the other side sat Elena Sterling. She was a vision of unshakable calm, wearing a black dress that signaled mourning for her ex-husband's stupidity. Arthur Pennyworth sat behind her, his face a mask of stone. Your Honor, Adrian's lawyer began, pacing the floor. We admit Mr. Blackwood made mistakes in the past. The stress of his business failing caused a temporary lapse in judgment. But he is the biological father of Leo, Sam, and Noah. He has been denied access to his children by a vindictive ex-wife who is using her billions to bully him. The law is clear. A father has a right to be in his children's lives. Adrian took the stand. He squeezed out a tear. I just want to hold them, Adrian choked out, looking at the jury. Even though it was a bench trial, he played to the room. I realized when I saw them in the office, I missed everything. I want to be a dad. I don't care about the money. I just want my boys. A murmur of sympathy went through the gallery. It was a good performance. Then, it was Elena's turn. She stood up. She didn't use a lawyer. She walked to the center of the room, her heels clicking rhythmically. Mr. Blackwood claims he has changed, Elena said, her voice clear and resonant. He claims he wants to be a father. He claims it is not about the money. She turned to the judge. Your Honor, I would like to submit Exhibit A. Arthur stood up and handed a flash drive to the bailiff. 3 days ago, Elena explained, Mr. Blackwood made a phone call from his cubicle at Sterling Blackwood. As per the employment contract he signed, which he clearly didn't read, all activity within the building, including personal calls made on company premises, is subject to monitoring for security purposes. Adrian's face went pale. He gripped the edge of the witness stand. The large screen in the courtroom flickered to life. The audio crackled. Then Adrian's voice filled the room loud and clear. The Sterling Trust is set up for those boys. If I get custody, even partial custody, I get control of the trust payouts. We're talking millions a month, Bella. Are you in? Then Isabella's voice, sharp and greedy. I'm listening. The courtroom gasped. The sympathetic father act shattered instantly. Adrian looked like a trapped rat. He doesn't love them, Elena said, pointing a finger at him like a loaded weapon. He sees them as ATMs. He sees them as a retirement plan, because he destroyed his own fortune. Objection, Adrian's lawyer screamed. Privacy violation. Overruled, the judge snapped, glaring at Adrian with pure disgust. The witness is an employee on company property. The evidence is admissible. I'm not done, Elena said coldly. Exhibit B. The screen changed. It was grainy black and white footage. The timestamp was 3 years ago. The location, Mount Sinai Hospital VIP suite. The video showed Adrian throwing the papers at Elena while she lay in the hospital bed. It showed him checking his watch. It showed him laughing with Isabella. But it was the audio, enhanced by Sterling's tech team, that sealed his fate. I'm relinquishing parental rights. I don't have time for diapers and crying. You're an anchor dragging me down. Elena stopped the video. She walked up to the witness stand, leaning in so close that Adrian could see the fire in her violet eyes. You called my sons dead weight, Adrian. You left them to starve in a motel. You didn't leave because of stress. You left because you are a narcissist. who cannot love anything that doesn't make him money. She turned to the judge. Your Honor, this man is not a father. He is a predator. I am asking for full, permanent custody and a restraining order keeping him 500 feet away from my children until they are 18. The judge didn't hesitate. He banged his gavel so hard, it echoed like a gunshot. Mr. Blackwood, the judge said, his voice dripping with contempt, your petition for custody is denied with prejudice. Furthermore, based on the recording of you conspiring to exploit a minor's trust fund, I am referring this matter to the district attorney for attempted fraud. No! Adrian screamed, standing up. You can't do this! I built Blackwood Tech. I am a visionary. You are a disgrace, the judge said. Bailiff, remove him. As the bailiffs grabbed Adrian's arms, the doors to the back of the courtroom burst open. It was the police. But they weren't there for the custody hearing. Adrian Blackwood? A detective shouted. You are under arrest for securities fraud and embezzlement regarding the Blackwood Tech offshore accounts. Elena had kept her promise. She hadn't reported him until he tried to touch her children. The moment he filed for custody, she had Arthur send the files to the FBI. Adrian struggled, his eyes wild. He looked at the gallery. He saw Isabella sitting in the back row. Bella, call my lawyer. Bail me out. Isabella stood up. She looked at Adrian, then she looked at Elena. She saw the power radiating off the chairwoman. She saw the police. She calculated the odds. Isabella adjusted her sunglasses. I don't know this man, she said loudly to the press. I was just a victim of his lies, too. She turned and walked out, leaving him alone. Elena! Adrian howled as they cuffed him. Elena! Please! Help me! Elena watched him being dragged away, the flashing cameras capturing his ruin. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She just felt a heavy weight lift off her shoulders. It's over, Arthur whispered beside her. Elena turned to him. No, Arthur. Now it begins. 6 months later, the sun was setting over the Sterling Manor, casting long golden shadows across the lawn. The sound of laughter filled the air. Leo, Sam, and Noah were running through the sprinklers, shrieking with joy. They were safe. They were loved. They would never know the cold of a queen's motel room. Elena sat on the porch, a cup of tea in her hand. She watched them play. She had rebuilt Blackwood Tech into a force for good, funding hospitals and schools. She was the most powerful woman in the city. But none of that mattered as much as the 3 little boys getting muddy in the garden. Arthur stepped onto the porch. Madam, the car is ready for the charity gala. And a letter arrived from the penitentiary. From Mr. Blackwood. Elena looked at the envelope in Arthur's hand. She didn't even reach for it. Burn it, she said softly. Arthur smiled. Very good, madam. Elena put down her tea and walked out onto the grass. The boys saw her and tackled her, their wet arms wrapping around her neck. Mommy! Mommy! She held them close, burying her face in their hair. She had walked through fire, poverty, and betrayal. She had been discarded and underestimated. But she had risen. She was Elena Sterling. And she had won the only thing that truly mattered. And that is the story of how Elena Sterling turned her pain into power, destroying the man who underestimated her, and building an empire of her own. It's a reminder that sometimes the person you discard today could be the person who buys your future tomorrow. Karma doesn't just knock. Sometimes it kicks down the door in high heels. If you enjoyed this story of revenge, justice, and the ultimate underdog victory, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. What did you think of Adrian's punishment? Did he deserve worse? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.